Obama still thinks Donald Trump is unfit to be president, but he said he had an excellent meeting with the president-elect.
If you succeed, then the country succeeds.
We'll show you how the transition is playing out and how the Trump revolution will shake up both parties. Plus, in our political Hall of Shame, Aaron Schock is back to remind us why voters hate what they see in Washington.
You know, as Taylor Swift said, haters are going to hate.
This is Money, Power, and Politics.
Here you go. Here is the picture, the moment of the day. Who would have thought in both cases? Let's go back to 2007. The Democratic establishment thought it was inconceivable that Senator Obama would be president. Then the Republican establishment thought the same thing. Then we go 8 years in time, and you have the Republican establishment saying Trump, inconceivable to get the nomination. And then the Democratic establishment, no way will he ever be president, and yet one succeeds the other. Marissa, what does that tell you about the establishment of both parties in Washington?
Well, they're trying to make ends meet here and try to be a little bit cordial and get things moving, because they have to put their differences aside to make this thing work. They discussed a wide variety of issues and topics today, and that is just the start of what they hope will be a smooth transition of power.
And there already is a transition of power. It started more than a year ago. The White House was planning on moving to whoever the next president would be, and that's what a big part of this meeting today between the president and President-elect is all about, cluing in President-elect Trump on what's already in the works and specifically what he needs for a smooth transition as he takes office in January. And no, they did not take any questions from reporters here. Imagine the type of questions they would get. They wanted to maintain control on this. They certainly did. But they also struck a very positive chord on this and said they look forward to working together in the future. Here's a look.
Been very encouraged by the, I think, interest in President-elect Trump's wanting to work with my team around many of the issues that this great country faces. And I believe that it is important for all of us, regardless of party and regardless of political preferences, to now come together, work together, to deal with the many challenges that we face.
This was a meeting that was going to last for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and we were just going to get to know each other. We had never met each other. I have great respect. The meeting lasted for almost an hour and a half, and it could have, as far as I'm concerned, it could have gone on for a lot longer. We really, we discussed a lot of different situations, some wonderful and some difficulties. I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel, and I look forward to being with you many, many more times in the future. Thank you, Scott.
Wow, what a difference a week makes in all of this. And it shows how Americans and the president and president-elect, despite all that was said time and time again, can in fact come together. This is just the first of several meetings, was it not, for the president-elect?
Yeah, he also, well, the future First Lady, Melania Trump, she met with the First Lady, Michelle Obama, and then they also met with the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, out at the Capitol grounds. It's another big moment for the president-elect Trump, meeting with House Speaker Paul Ryan. As I just said, the two really haven't seen eye to eye in the past, but they came together this afternoon as Speaker Ryan gave Trump the lay of the land in Washington, D.C. Check that out. Just amazing video. Along with the future First Lady and Vice President, Speaker Ryan took Trump out to the Speaker's balcony overlooking where Trump will actually be taking the oath of office and sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. They also did not take questions from the press today, but they both did acknowledge that they are eager to work together.
And think about the tension that those two had as well before the election and the back and forth, the push and pull. There will still be push and pull between the two of them as they try to feel each other out because they have a common agenda, but they also have some competing interests as well. And as it relates to foreign policy, let's get into this. You have the president-elect who not so long ago famously said that he knows more about ISIS than do the generals.
Yeah, and as the commander-in-chief, President-elect Trump. He's going to inherit all these issues that include Syria, the war on terror, and everything else that's happening within the country that's outside of U.S. borders, and that includes that humanitarian crisis in Syria.
And that takes us to John Huddy, who's taking a closer look at what the president-elect is up against.
U.S.-backed Kurdish forces fighting back a fierce ISIS counterattack this week as they push toward the terror group's capital in Syria. They're now just 30 miles north of Raqqa and advancing quickly, liberating towns and villages held by ISIS for years.
They have imprisoned women, imprisoned as though they do not want women to go out. When they see a woman not wearing black, they take her identification card.
The fighting continues as the UN warns of another looming humanitarian disaster. Aid groups say they don't have enough food, blankets, or clothing to make it through the winter, and that could mean a big uptick in the civilian death toll.
The fifth war winter is starting in Syria. There is no doubt it will be the worst in this cruel war.
The UN also making clear it expects U.S. involvement in the crisis to continue during the Trump administration. But the president-elect has hinted that he may side with Russia in the ongoing conflict and end the official U.S. stance calling for the removal of Bashar al-Assad. Fighters on the ground say no matter where U.S. policy falls, they'll continue to oppose the Assad regime.
To be honest, the new President Trump is the same as his predecessors like Obama and others. These are characters who come and go, but the American policy does not change.
The U.S. military is providing heavy air cover for the northern offensive on Raqqa. There are around 30,000 Kurdish fighters involved, and the operation is expected to take months. In Jerusalem, John Huddy, Fox News.
You know, we'll shift gears now to our political Hall of Shame. We have a Hall of Shame on this show. We have an inductee each year. Last year's inductee happened to have been Aaron Schock. Remember Mr. Schock there, former congressman?
Well, he is back in the news again. Schock was the Illinois congressman who railed on Washington spending but had some spending problems of his own. Now,
those spending problems, if you're not familiar or don't remember, let's start with a little refresher of Aaron Schock and his days in Washington. Aaron Schock is not a prince, but he played one in Congress.
I've never been a old crusty white guy.
Indeed, crusty old white guys had nothing on Prince Aaron. He graced us with his adventures on Instagram and reacted with royal disdain when pesky reporters asked why he was blowing our tax money on private flights, concerts, luxury resorts, and other indulgences for himself.
Well, amazing what interests people, right?
As he saw it, he only spent $100,000 sprucing up his offices, and he thought his Downton Abbey-themed lobby just suited his taste.
You know, as Taylor Swift said, haters are gonna hate.
But beyond the sense of royalty, arrogance, self-entitlement, and free spending, you can't miss the striking hypocrisy.
I think the hardworking taxpayers of this country expect us to finally deal with Washington's spending problem.
Yeah, and that kind of hypocrisy drove the Trump revolution. Schock now indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of wire fraud and theft of government funds, among other things. 24 counts in total. His attorney says those charges are a misuse of power by the Justice Department. Okay, let's take a look at what we have coming up because we are a long way from finished. We're going to take a closer look at Vice President-elect Mike Pence, what his role will be, how much clout he will have, and what he is now saying about Donald Trump.
Plus, Florida Governor Rick Scott chimes in on what issues President-elect Trump will have to get on top of right away after this break.
And oh, the list of ways that Donald Trump caught the establishment off guard. Remember when he picked Mike Pence as his running mate, and you had the establishment saying, just wringing their hands, oh, what has Pence done? What has he done here? And here he is trying to defend Trump. Oh, his stock is going down after this. What was he thinking? Well, you know what Pence is thinking tonight. Pretty smart. He did okay.
Yeah, he feels good. I think he's feeling good tonight.
And I think at this point we need to take a closer look at what Pence is saying about Donald Trump. It gives us a clue in terms of what his role will be in Washington and where he goes from here and how much clout he'll actually have in the White House.
Yeah, and according to Pence, Trump embodies the type of person this country needs to pave the way for a better America.
I'm proud to be standing with Donald Trump. I mean, to travel with this man, as I've had the privilege in Florida and across this country, is to see the kind of leader that I truly do believe the collective wisdom of the people of our party was right. I mean, Donald Trump provides the kind of broad-shouldered leadership that's going to have America standing tall in the world again, going to rebuild our military, and with a son in the Marine Corps, that cuts pretty close to home for me, and rebuild our economy with those time-honored traditions of less taxes, less red tape, more American energy, and common sense toughness in our trade deals that'll make sure that international trade is working for American workers. That's the kind of leadership that people are responding to in Donald Trump.
And the Trump revolution sets up Florida Governor Rick Scott for his next move. Question is, what will it be?
Yeah, we can take some guesses at that. I think we got a pretty good guess. Of course, Scott squashed talk of serving in a Trump cabinet. We'll see if he changes his mind on that. But he does not shut down talk of running for the United States Senate in 2018. In fact, tonight, since we nailed our big predictions for this year's race, let's go ahead and roll our first prediction after the election. Mercy, you want the honors on this one?
Yeah, let's go ahead and predict that here in 2016, that Rick Scott will challenge Senator Bill Nelson in 2018, and Trump could return the favor by throwing his support and money behind Scott in an off year when Republicans tend to win the turnout battle. And remember, Scott shared a PAC that raised $20 million to elect Donald Trump.
Yeah, and that's not chump change in this. And of course, Scott's constant refrain, we've heard it year after year, is jobs, jobs, jobs. And tonight, Rick Scott is paying the biggest compliment I think he can pay, possibly, to the president-elect by saying that he and Trump are on the exact same page when it comes to Scott's favorite topic.
I think the biggest thing is turn the economy around. This is, look at what's happened in Florida. We've turned ours around, but nationally, the economy is very soft. You can't do anything. You have money for defense. You don't have money for security. You don't have any money if you don't turn this economy around. The first focus has to be, how do we reduce taxes? How do we reduce the Obama regulations? How do we get this country going again so there's jobs like there is in Florida all across the country? We have 250,000 jobs open in our state. That's why people are moving here. But we've got to do the same thing for the rest of the country. So I think Donald Trump is going to focus on jobs, jobs, jobs.
Well, on the other hand, Senator Marco Rubio isn't as close to the president.
No, not quite as close. In fact, he said that he would serve as a check to the president's power. In fact, he said he had some big problems with Donald Trump and that he wanted to stand up to him in the Senate if Trump won.
Well, he said a little bit more than that.
Yeah, he said that Trump's a con artist who would bring irreparable harm to his party.
And he made fun of his size of his hands.
Yeah, among other things, also suggested that Trump wet his pants one time when he tried his hand at insult comedy, and that he can't be trusted with the nuclear codes. And while Rubio said those things in the heat of battle, he also said that he stood by those things.
But now Rubio says it's time to move beyond that and try to break the gridlock in Washington.
Well, it's important for the country. It's not for the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. The election's over. Political commentators can keep talking about politics, but we're now focused on governing. We've got to be able to do what needs to be done to make this country better. And so it's time to come together, and we'll have another election in 2 years, but in the meantime, it's time to do our job, which is to go back to Washington and get things done on behalf of our country and all of our people.
Well, the months and months of campaigning between President-elect Trump and Hillary Clinton has left a nation divided.
Left the Republican Party divided, at least to a certain extent as well. Next question is, where does the Republican establishment, the political elite, go from here? Do they fall in line behind Trump? Probably will. With that, you have to get some clues on this from what Reince Priebus, head of the RNC, is saying tonight.
We can't make America great again without all of us coming together and remembering that we're all on the same team. Politics is tough, and this election was unbelievable, and it was tough, and it was nasty. But nobody, including me, and I'm pretty certain I can say President-elect Trump, wants to continue acting like we're still in a campaign. We're not. We need to build this country and come together.
All right, coming up, we dug up some old video on this Throwback Thursday. We'll take you back to 2011 when President Obama poked fun at the now president-elect Donald Trump after this.
Marissa, we did not know this at the time, but 5 years ago, President Obama may have launched the Trump revolution by accident.
Trump does not like to be embarrassed. We all know that. And President Obama humiliated him on national TV.
Yeah, Trump was promoting the birther movement, and Obama was a little miffed about that.
Yeah, he was. So the president got some payback at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, roasting Trump like Don Rickles.
Yeah, and those who know Trump say that may have inspired him to seek some payback of his own and get his revenge by running Obama out of the White House.
So for this Throwback Thursday, here's a look back at the moment that may have changed the course of history.
There's a vicious rumor floating around that I think could really hurt Mitt Romney. I heard he passed universal health care when he was governor of Massachusetts. Someone should get to the bottom of that. And I know just the guy to do it. Donald Trump is here tonight. Now, I know that he's taken some flack lately, but no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac? Say what you will about Mr. Trump. He certainly would bring some change to the White House. Let's see what we've got up there.
So as you saw, Trump did not laugh, and people who were with him say he was fuming.
And they're on the record on this. They've gone on the air and said they think that lit the fire in Trump to stop talking about running for president. Talked and talked and talked about it and actually do it for a change. And then what happened next?
Well, 5 years later, he got the last laugh by succeeding Obama and taking the keys to the White House.
Okay, we're wrapping things up here. I want something different. You usually come up with that in segment 4 here. I'm going to put you on the spot here. We've got some other things coming up too. President Obama also greeted some royalty at the White House. We'll show you how he hit it off with King James and how that relates to a travesty of justice for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Okay, here we have President Obama greeting the Cleveland Cavaliers, the champions here. Yay, yay, good for them. But you know what strikes me about this, Marissa? Whatever happened to the world champion Bucks? They never got a ceremony like this. What's the deal?
They never did. They said it would come later, and then they just never got around to it. So here we are. That was 2002, 14 years later.
This is a challenge now to President-elect Trump. Let's make history, right? Let's bring those Bucks, the ones who are left, back together here. Okay, we have, 15 seconds left. Take a look at this video here. What do we have here, Marissa?
So this is the Wax Museum in London. They're creating the head of Donald Trump.
There you go.
As you can see, it looks pretty darn good.
And that's our something different. Before we go, what is that up there in the upper left there? I can't speak French very well. What is?
I'm going to attempt this. Madame Tussauds?
Nicely played.
We'll
okay, I didn't know you studied French there. I didn't speak a lick. All right, thank you so much for joining us. That is our show tonight. We will see you again tomorrow night. Take care.